I was born with this beard. No, seriously. I just popped right out, full beard, turban, and everything. As you can imagine, I was pretty big because of this. In fact, the doctor even said that I might not make it out. But I did, by just a hair. I carried my beard with me through middle school, where I was given the lovely nickname of Beard Guy. And just this past year, a girl told me that she thought that I had been a senior for the past 4 years. Okay, so I guess I'm finally living up to her expectations. Obviously, my hair is a pretty big part of my identity, but recently it started to give me some problems. And I'm not talking about with maintenance, like, my goodness, ladies, how do you do it? No, I'm talking about how it's given me problems as to what I want to do as a career. Some people grow up wanting to be doctors or lawyers or astronauts. I grew up wanting to do nothing. So naturally I decided I wanted to be a politician. But the problem is that politicians just don't look like this. And it's become a pretty major problem with representation in our democracy. According to Stanford University professor Karen Beastman, we're selecting our leadership from a criteria that fits just 6% of our entire population. Now, we may have a black president, and the frontrunner for the Democratic Party may be a woman, and for some people that might be enough, but is it really? It's no secret that our government lacks diversity, but what's even more shocking is how little people seem to care about this lack of diversity. According to a poll from ABC News in 2013, just 23% of Americans believe that having a more diverse government would actually be a good thing, which is a pretty striking fact, once we consider that these are the people who are literally creating the laws that govern our society. We have to realize that diversity is absolutely critical to advancing our goals as Americans. So today, we'll comb over the ways of how undiverse our democracy truly is. Then we'll trim out the impacts and see how it affects us directly, before finally shaving out some solutions. Just like the number of hairs that I have on my body, there is a lot of underrepresentation in our current democracy. We've claimed that this current Congress is the most diverse ever. This 75% white male Congress, in which the majority are millionaires, is supposedly the epitome for all things diverse within our system. And as we look around the room, we can clearly see the vast majority of us are indeed white millionaires. So, go us, we made it! The fact is that in the entire United States, we have just 2 black senators out of 100. Black people make up 12% of our entire nation, yet they're only represented 6% of the time in our government. The Latino population makes up 18% of the people in America, yet they only represent 6% of the people in our government. The biggest disparity, without a doubt, comes from women. Women serve in just 17% of governmental positions, despite making up 51% of our nation. We rank 98th in the world of women serving in government. That's behind Indonesia and Kenya. Then Kenya. Kenya, dig it? I sure cannot. And to freak us all out! The event Student Congress has more diversity than the actual Congress. Yet despite all this, we've gotten comfortable with this underrepresented representative democracy. Another major factor that's come into play is that of social status. As mentioned earlier, for the first time ever, the majority of Congress members are now millionaires. It's gotten to the point where the poorest member of Congress, Representative David Valadao, made $160,000 last year. That's the poorest. How can we expect our legislators to debate on things like welfare, when the vast majority of them have never had to struggle for anything much in their entire lives? We can't say that we have true representation when some of the people who need the most amount of help can't even have their voices heard. Okay, so clearly this is a pretty hairy situation, but why should we care about it? Well, for one, the government is supposed to be representative of what the people want. And quite frankly, it's not. A study from Princeton University in 2014 examined the correlation between the likelihood that Congress would pass a law based on public opinion polls of what people wanted. What they found was that of the bottom 90% of income earners in America, most of us, by the way, had a literal 0% impact on what laws got passed in Congress. No correlation whatsoever between what the vast majority of us want and what Congress actually has done. But they also found that the top 10% had a, quote, major influence on what laws got passed. For instance, when CBS and the New York Times asked, would you prefer to have a federal mandate requiring universal background checks on all potential gun owners, over 90% of both Democrats and Republicans responded yes. Think about that for a second. The Republicans and the Democrats agreed on something. On guns, no less. Yet since 2012, that exact piece of legislation has failed in Congress 3 times. And during that same time frame, the NRA has funneled $27 million to people who voted against that exact act. When we don't have representatives who look like us, haven't faced the same struggles as we have, or even walked the same streets, we have to ask, who are they really representing? Not me, at least not in my experience. As someone who's finishing up his final year of high school, I've had to stop avoiding that dreadful question of, what do you want to do when you grow up? I've always told people that I wanted to be a teacher, that I wanted to make an impact on people's lives and influence them for the better. But then one day last year, I gave a speech to the Sikh community during the sacred holiday of Vaisakhi. I talked about how we as Sikhs weren't doing a good enough job of branching out into our communities and of correcting those incorrect assumptions that people were making about us. After I gave that speech, an old woman came up to me and said, "Son, we need to follow you because you're the only one that we can. You're all that we've got." Now, I know that might sound like bragging, but it's actually really depressing because she's right. The fact is that in the entire United States, there is not one Sikh person who represents us, who represents me. And I want to be that guy, but I hesitate to even try to enter an office because I just don't know what will happen if I do. Because ask yourselves, when people see me, will they think politician or politicized? So how can we solve this problem? How can we get this little brown furball into office? Okay, obviously they won't solve the entire problem, but it would go a pretty long way. After all, the entire point of Congress was so that people who didn't have a voice in democracy could have a way to shape the system. But that also means that we need to start paying attention as to who is going into our Congress. Despite Congress having just a 12% approval rating, roughly 96% of them ended up getting reelected anyways. Which honestly brings us to the best way as to how we can help solve this problem. Vote. Not just in general elections, not just in elections with an even-numbered year at the end of them, in all elections. State governor, state legislature, education board, city council, every single representative had to start somewhere, which makes these small elections just as important, if not more important, than the actual election to become a representative in the United States. Lastly, it couldn't hurt to look and see what some other countries are up to. And by other countries, I mean Canada. Let's look at Canada. New Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently made it so that his cabinet was made up of exactly 50% men and 50% women. When asked why he did this, he simply responded by saying, because it's 2015. And now it's 2016. And now I believe that it is time. Time that I announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America in 2036. A vote for Chotalla is a vote for the beer! I can tell you all like it now. let me tell you as it goes on, it'll only grow on you more. Okay, all weird jokes aside, we have to do something about this. Because for the majority of us, this just isn't working anymore. We deserve to have a government that is made up of all the people, be it black, white, rich, poor, Sikh, Christian, men, women, and everything else in between. As Alexander Hamilton stated, everyone should have some of their own in the representative body to have their interests and wants understood and attended to. Sooner or later, I hope he's right.